Discover Shipwreck Beads.
Today we're going to be talking about even count flat peyote stitch. Flat peyote stitch is extremely versatile and easy to do once you learn how to start it. Starting is the biggest challenge. Traditionally it's done with seed beads. I'm using a larger bead here to make demonstration a little bit easier to see. What you would want to do is take a bead and just use it as a stop bead, just a little loose knot at the end so you don't lose your beads as you string them on. Now an even count flat peyote stitch, the first two rows are strung together and then the third row combines to make the brick type look that the stitch has. And I'll demonstrate that here. We're going to take 4 blue and 4 of the tan, and these are going to be our first 2 rows. So we have even count because the total of the first 2 rows is an even number. So we're going to then pick up a bead. You're going to skip the bead closest to your needle and come in through its neighbor, like so. We're going to add another bead on there, skipping the next bead and going through its neighbor. Then we're going to, since we're using 2 colors here, I'm going to switch to the blue. Skip the blue bead, go through its next door bead, and then skipping this blue bead and entering the last one, with this one being our stop bead. Now you can see this is not looking all that pretty. That is very typical in flat peyote. The first few rows are kind of wonky. They don't want to kind of line up real easily. Oftentimes it helps to actually hold the beads in your hand. Other times, for demonstration purposes, I've been doing it on the flat here, but if I was at home, I would probably be holding it in my hand and using my fingers for tension to kind of hold those in place. After you get several rows done, then it will hold a better shape. So in this case, we're coming out this bead, and we're going to go through the one, and you can see that they have one that has an up bead and a down bead. You've got your down bead and your up bead, if that makes sense. And so we're going to just be skipping beads, adding them one at a time. Like so. And here I've got a piece. I did it in a slightly different pattern after quite a few rows, and you can see that it snugs up nicely as long as you use that tension. That will help get those first rows together. Sometimes people prefer to just remove the first 2 rows because they just don't line up really nicely once they get a piece big enough to work with. That's just a matter of personal preference. Now there is a 2 needle start, which often makes this beginning rows a little bit easier. And in this one, we're going to put 1 bead on each needle, bring them down. Then we're going to take both needles through 1 bead. Oops, I came unthreaded. Good thing this has got a big hole there. Okay. So we're going to bring those down and manipulate it like so. Then we're going to add 1 bead on each needle. Like so. And then both needles through 1 bead. And so on. So you can see at this point then you're actually doing the first 3 rows of beading at one time, but you are getting a much more stable base row. So if that works for you, that's wonderful. When you get to the end of the row, you just remove one of the needles and continue to work with the single needle across the rows. I have some examples here of some different ideas in peyote stitch. Here's a flat peyote bracelet just done in 2 colors. Very simple but very elegant. Here we have the base of this bracelet was done in cube beads and in the flat peyote stitch, and then it was embellished on the top with different beads and fringe on there. And then this bracelet is a more complex pattern design. There are lots and lots of patterns available, lots of books, very talented designers. So if that's something that you would be interested in, well, then you can see that you can get some very intricate designs.
Explore the treasures, discover shipwreck beads.